What's going on, everybody? It's Achilles LBT coming at you with a brand new build video, and I will go ahead and apologize in advance because this one is well overdue. I definitely apologize for that. Last weekend, actually played. I had one full day where I played a lot, and to be brutally honest, every time I tried to get a video done for the channel, bad things started happening, and I'm trying to make it. I'm trying to not get into a habit of uploading too many videos where the end result involves me losing the game, because I feel like that just looks bad after a while. So again, I do apologize for how my luck has been with the game. Just to briefly update, I actually took a very good turn because of Artanis, because of my build. I actually have gone through with my plan of readying up as Artanis in every lobby, and if like the pick gets stolen from me, I just switch over to Sonya. And with Sonya in particular, I will be having a new Sonya video coming up very soon, by the way. So anybody who subbed specifically for like Sonya vids, there's definitely one coming up pretty soon that I will be recording today. I will be trying to record as much as I can today, and I will be streaming today as far as this video goes. Today, as of this recording, is November 6th. Black Ops 3 just came out last night at midnight, so I definitely will be streaming just for fun, not anything competitive, just playing for fun, just having a good time. But that's neither here nor there. So, back to what I was saying. My Hero League luck was actually going for the better, going as Artanis or Sonya, and with Sonya in particular, I actually had a very quiet but hardcore 10-game winning streak with her alone. I just was not losing for a while, and I actually got myself to rank 10. On one day, I got myself to rank 10 3 different times. And in all 3 occasions when I hit rank 10, all of a sudden I started getting slammed with bad lobbies, bad players, bad attitudes. And it sucks because the games that I did win while I was a rank 10, because it's not like I just got to 10 and lost immediately. I would win like one game maybe, get like halfway through to starting to get to 9, and then get hit with the bad lobbies where I would go all the way back. And right now I'm currently at 12, I believe. And yeah, I'm still getting hit with it. But the thing that sucks is that when I was playing, when I got put in the lobbies with like rank 2s and rank 1s and stuff like that, I felt like I was right at home. Like I fit right in with that group, which I knew I would. Like I said it last month that I felt like I was good enough to be playing with people who are like rank 1s all the time, but that I knew I would never get that high. And I'm still not quite sure now that I will get that high because of how matchmaking is, but it's worth a trying. But that's neither here nor there. Just to kind of showcase one last thing before I stop rambling and get into this build. In case people didn't know, I rarely show off my overalls in my videos. But in case people did not know, when you go to your statistics, they may show one set of numbers for all of your heroes, as you see. Anybody, again, the Sonya people, I'm sitting at over 8,000 kills with her right now. But if you didn't know, if you notice the bottom 2 right here, they say like I have 900. And I noticed this like months ago because I had for the longest, I knew how many kills I had with specific heroes. If you see numbers that don't quite look right to you with the specific heroes right there, you just go into hero collection and you click on that hero and it changes their kill total for you. Nova's another one that I know is not accurate. And then when you go to statistics, all of a sudden these numbers are a lot more accurate of what they actually are. There are no 900s here now, and everybody, like I have 11 heroes as of now over with at least 1,000 kills. So just a little I guess sidebar right there. Anyhow, getting to the DPS build with Artanis. Now, I'm going to say that at this point, I'm pretty sure that everybody has the same build with him. So, like, a lot of what you're about to see is not necessarily going to be new, but my reasoning is definitely going to be my own. And one thing that's going to be different from what I see everybody doing is my level 16 pick, but we will get there. So, going over Artanis' basic abilities, his Q ability is a blade dash where he dashes forward, back. He dashes forward and then back again. His forward attack is a minimized amount of damage, and the back end is where you get the bulk of the damage. Now, when Artanis first came out, there were a lot of people who were programmed to use dash abilities for evasion or escapes. And with Artanis, it would backfire because wherever he dashes, he goes back to where he starts. Like, no matter what, he always returns to his starting point. So there was a lot of complaints out there, be it forums, streamers, anything. You would, in-game people, like in the chat, you would see a lot of complaints about Blade Dash, like, being an issue, like his movement was weird and things of that nature. I'm going to say straight up that For me, it was a non-issue from the jump. I didn't necessarily use it the same way that everybody else used it. So for me, it wasn't an issue of like having weird movement or anything like that. I was happy because Artanis felt extremely natural to me. Like when I first used him, I mean, you saw the video. That video I posted last week or last year, depending on how long it's been taking me to do videos. I posted that. That was my very first game, and I started off noobish. But then as the game went on, I started playing a lot better, and I finished with a lot of hero. I think it was like 75,000 hero damage, and nobody else was anywhere near me. So Artanis felt extremely, extremely normal to me, like natural. And the thing with Blade Dash, people by now would say that you can't use Blade Dash to evade anything. That's not true either. That's definitely not true. Blade Dash is awesome at evading like area of effect attacks, basically. So like especially ones that only last for like a second. That second that you're not there. So generally when I use Blade Dash to evade, I see the area that's about to be affected. Like a good example I guess would be like Kael'Thas's Q ability when it's being buffed by his D ability. And it's a bigger circle basically. When he casts it, you can use the Blade Dash anywhere. Artanis will dash out of the way, the ability will spring, like the damage will come, and by the time Artanis goes back to his regular place, his starting spot, there's nothing to be afraid of. Same thing works on bosses whenever they do their area stuns. Whenever that purple circle highlights on the floor, you just use a dash at a certain time. He jumps out of the way of it, the attack goes down, and then he comes back on the back end and goes back to his starting spot. No damage taken. He's none the worse for wear. Nothing. Blade Dash can absolutely be used to evade things, but in a different way. So just be mindful of that. Moving on to his W ability. His W ability, which will be basically be the ability that sets everything into motion after a while, is his Twin Blades, which has a 4-second cooldown. And basically, your next basic attack immediately strikes the enemy 2 times. So, this is an ability that doesn't really start off as much, but after you hit level 10, skyrockets in value. So, and the fact that it has a 4-second cooldown, and you're going to see, like, because this time I'm actually going to be detailing what I'm doing when I get to the second half of this video, unlike the first time I showcased Artanis. I have a very, very, very similar playstyle with Artanis that I do with Sonya. Very similar. And like even down to his abilities, they are extremely similar to the way I use Sonya. And with Sonya, I spam my W's with the Seismic Slams, has a 1-second cooldown. It's the same exact thing with Twin Blades. Granted, Twin Blades doesn't do anywhere near the same amount of damage that the Seismic Slam does, but on the back end, the second half of the game, it damn sure does. And 4 seconds is not anything crazy at all cooldown-wise. It is nothing crazy. So, basically, if you're actively engaged in a fight with Artanis, or as Artanis, you should be spamming your W's. Think of like how you use Lily, or how you're supposed to use Lily, where you should just be spamming your Q's basically the entire time that your teammates are taking damage. You should just be spamming your Q's. Same thing with Artanis and his W ability. If you have a target in front of you, you should be spamming that W like a motherfucker as much as possible, because that is what's going to wear your opponents out. And you factor in his trait, which we'll get to after this next ability, it just all becomes a very, very, very good effect. Now, moving on to his E ability, the Phase Prism. You swap positions with an enemy hero. Basically, you don't use this ability for the damage, obviously. The damage is very, very low, very, very minimal. You don't even notice it. And the thing that where a lot of people go wrong, and mind you, I said I had a very Sonya-like approach with Artanis. People use Phase Prism only, like, predominantly on targets that are either trying to escape, or they use it at weird times where even they don't really know what they're doing and they just want to press a button. Like, you could tell people don't know what they're doing. And sometimes their positioning on when they try to use it is very, very off. And with me in particular, this is basically Artanis' equivalent of the Ancient Spear, where I use this ability to actually initiate fights instead of the other way around. I walk right into traffic. Like, I am not afraid. Like, that's one of the biggest things that people were going wrong with Artanis, was that they were afraid to engage because he has no gap closers. People thought that the Q ability would be a good way to engage, but then they would always forget that Artanis dashes back to his original spot. So, like, you can use the ability, sure, and land 2 hits, sure, but you're not going to end up any closer to the target once the ability comes to pass, and that was the problem. And with Phase Prism, if you're able to land this, which more often than not I am able to land it, of course in the second half of the video, I'm probably going to miss every single one just because I said that, but if you're able to land Phase Prism consistently, you don't have to worry about gap closing, because the minute you switch positions with a guy, his first natural instinct is to walk back into you. All you have to do at that point is body block, spam your W, keep getting off auto attacks, try to body block as much as possible, and by the time they finally get past you, that's when you hit him with the blade dash. That's exactly when you hit him twice, and then all of a sudden he's worse for wear, and one more W will probably seal that kill for you. If not, maybe you're lucky and the fight lasted 14 seconds. He's like low on health. You can hit him with another Phase Prism and seal his fate that way. Moving on to his Artanis' trait. Shield Overload, you gain a shield when attacked at low health. If you take damage while below 50% health, you gain a 144-point shield for 5 seconds. It keeps getting stronger. Your basic attacks lower the cooldown of Shield Overload by 4 seconds. Now, in case anybody was confused by that last part, the way I was, I thought that last part meant that if you auto attack to get this thing off a cooldown, it only lowers it by 4 seconds. And I thought at level 20, it would lower it by 6 seconds, but that you'd still have to wait for the rest of it. I had no idea until I looked at it that every auto attack, that's 4 seconds per auto attack. That is insane. You can literally just keep spamming off your auto attacks and queue up this shield long enough to outlast your opponents. Now, this is the biggest thing. Before I get into that, matter of fact, before I get into that, I want to jump back to what I was talking about with Phase Prism and initiating and gap closing. Shield Overload is exactly what they put. Like, this is exactly what Artanis was designed to work around, is Shield Overload. He is the only hero in the game that I can think of that when you have him halfway dead, you are still not an advantage. You are not in an advantage. Depending on how you spec him, build him, however you want to word it, Artanis is at his best when he's dying, when he's almost dead, when he's halfway dead. All of a sudden the monster comes out and he becomes a way, way, way bigger deal. Way bigger deal. And because of Shield Overload, I'm never afraid to just walk into damage. I'm not. Like, you have to be fearless with Artanis. If you're not fearless, then he doesn't work. Like, plain and simple, he doesn't work. And I will openly acknowledge he does not have good escapability. He doesn't have any escapability whatsoever. He doesn't have any escapes or anything like that, or movement buffs or anything. And he has the other thing I will mention with Artanis that's kind of a downside, but they had to have weaknesses because he's so powerful, especially if you know how to use him. But he also has no self-healing whatsoever behind the standard regeneration rate. He has absolutely no means to heal himself. So that's something that you want to factor in. You don't want to go full-blown kamikaze with Artanis, because whatever health you lose, you don't get back. Not necessarily like in a timely fashion, like the way you would with a Sonya who has War Paint if you pick it, which you should be picking. But if you have War Paint, every auto attack at least gives her some measure of health back. Any heroes that have Vampiric Assault or Vampiric Strike, same thing with them. Like, Artanis doesn't have any of that. So all he has is his shields, and that's why they programmed it for 4 seconds per auto attack, because if you stay actively engaged, you keep getting that shield back over and over and over again. After a while, Artanis almost becomes a little Johanna-like. Even if you don't spec into the shield at all, he becomes almost a little Johanna-like in that sense. Only like not as strong as Johanna, and you get the shields more often because her shield is on a 20-second cooldown, and she can't spam it. Artanis absolutely can, but his is not as strong as hers. So that's just something you want to be mindful of. So, moving on to his ultimates, the Suppression Pulse, or people call it the Blind Circle. You fire a large area pulse from the Spear of Adun, dealing 50 damage and blinding enemies for 4 seconds in a limited range. Now, I'm just going to flat out say, I think this heroic is completely useless. Yes, it has a blind on it. Yes, if you play against a composition with Raynor, Illidan, Sonya, Any other auto attack heroes, 2 more, add 2 more. Yes, if you play against that kind of composition and you use it, you basically kill all their auto attack damage for 4 seconds. I get it, but so what? You're not gonna wipe the entire team out in those 4 seconds unless you have perfect team chemistry, team harmony, teamwork, whatever other team word I can't fucking think of. This will go nowhere, and it does no fucking damage. It is not worth it. The only upside to this ability is that it has unlimited range, and it doesn't cost a lot of mana, and it has a 50-second cooldown, so you don't wait that long to get it. So, but other than that, aside from that, I mean, how many realistically speaking, how many auto attack compositions are you really gonna play against that you're gonna find use for this? So, like, that's another thing to think about. Excuse me. So, moving on to the other one, Purifier Beam, which that chases an enemy with an orbital beam. You target an enemy hero with an orbital beam from the Spear of Adun, dealing 80 damage per second for 8 seconds. Now, these are just level 1 numbers. This is actually a lot higher. This scales a lot higher once you actually get it at 10, so just keep that in mind. It's not 80 damage by the time you get it. The beam will chase the target as they move unlimited range. Now, one thing obviously we want to get out of the way is that the beam is definitely very slow, so it's not hard to evade after 2 seconds of it being after 2 seconds. But the first 2 to 3 seconds, though, the beam is very accurate, especially obviously if you root the enemy, if you slow the enemy, it just makes it that much better. Now, there are 2 different ways. I alluded to this in my last video with Artanis. There are 2 different ways to use this ability effectively that makes this the clear-cut choice between the 2. I've actually had somebody try to tell me to go with the blind circle just because we were playing with auto attack, and I just paid it no mind in the Hero League game. I paid it no mind and picked what I wanted to pick. I picked the Purifier Beam, and I had a team wipe like once we hit level 20, I had a team wipe no problem because I picked what I picked. So I'm not gonna listen to anybody that tells me to go Suppression Pulse because it is completely useless in my opinion. I'm sorry if you disagree with me on that. I'm not gonna say that it's a fact, but it's just my opinion. So, like I was saying, and this has unlimited range too. Artanis is the only hero in the game, as far as I know, that has unlimited range on both of his abilities. He's not like say an Illidan with the Hunt, where you have to wait till level 20 to get global range. Artanis gets it right at 10 with no extra upgrades required. So that is big. That is definitely big. You can effectively help your team out from anywhere. So the third time I'm gonna try and say this. One, as I mentioned in the last video, is to peel the tank, because even though the laser is slow, if it's trying to hit you as the person on the receiving end, you have to respect the damage on the laser. If you choose to sit there and eat it, it will backfire on you in some way, shape, or form. So one way to use a laser would be to use it on the tank to peel him without actually having to be in his face. It gets him to move around, and if he's moving around, he's not focused on doing his job. He's focused on evading the laser, which gives your teammates an opening to go for the back line. That's just one way to use it. The other way to use it, which is probably the more dominant way to use it, is to finish the kills rather than start the kills. If you use this ability to finish the kills, preferably at level 20, you can start a chain reaction and things that could ultimately lead to team wipes that become fairly common ground with Artanis. So, Purifier Beam is definitely the way to go. Moving on to the build now. I already went over all of these in the very first video, so I'm not going to go talent by talent necessarily. But I will give little small thoughts on these just in case you're new to the channel. This is your first time watching a video or whatever. So, obviously, I think if Phase Prism was more useful to more people, that the Kadorian Resonance might have had a place for Artanis, but because people aren't so high on it, I don't think that this talent will really ever get picked all that much, unless people are just bored. What I do see people doing a lot is picking reactive parry to get a shield every single time you hit your W ability, and while I think the block is improved, I always say this, I like the new block that's only triggered by heroes auto-attacking you. There are not a bevy of auto-attack heroes in the game to really warrant picking reactive parry. Now, I understand that people pick this because when they want to go for a tank build, they think go block. You know, like that's for everybody's first thought. Again, I had other videos where I've commented on this, like why that's the wrong way to go. But basically, to kind of sum it up, again, there are not a bevy of auto-attack heroes. Block does not block abilities. It doesn't block abilities. That's what Spell Shield is for. It only blocks auto attacks, and you're not going to be getting auto attacked a hell of a whole lot. And when you get into situations anyway where you're outnumbered, that block goes for shit. And that's what I don't like about having block talents, is that they feel good in the early game, but then scale off in the late game big time. You don't even notice them there. Amateur Opponent is basically their attempt to try and give you an option to make him a jungler. I've never actually seen anybody go for this, and I don't think you should, because there is just way more potential, both as Artanis, with Artanis as a tank and with Artanis as a damage dealer. Obviously, this is a DPS build, so at level 1, you want to be going Seasoned Marksman. Now, one thing I will say about Seasoned Marksman on Artanis, maybe it's just the way I use him, or there's just something there that I can't explain, but his Seasoned Marksman stat count builds extremely fucking fast compared to other heroes that I use this on a lot. I feel like Artanis gets to 20 a lot faster than he should, and that once you hit like 15 to 20, you're starting to get some real value out of Seasoned Marksman. So that's definitely where you want to go at level 1. Level 4, I was using this from the jump, from the onset, when people were saying that the Q ability was broken. I never thought it was. Like, when I use them, again, I just had a natural feel. With Lethal Alacrity, you increase your Q's range and speed. Now, you might think the range is the only thing valuable in getting this, but the speed is just every bit as valuable, maybe even more so, because with the regular speed dash, you don't get real damage until the back end of it, and the back end is very, very easy to see coming and avoid early in the game. So having that speed boost makes that a little bit harder. So it's definitely something that's worth its weight in gold. And when paired up with the level 7 choice, it just becomes a very, very, very good damage dealing ability, especially if you have enemies, if you have heroes in a line, which I tend to find that to be the case a lot when I use Artanis. So Lethal Alacrity is definitely the way to go. Level 7, I go for Solarite Reaper, which increases the Blade Dash's first attack damage. All of a sudden, it's boosted by 150%, so it's no longer minimal. So you're getting very, very, very good value on the first attack. If you don't land the second one, the first one is still going to be doing a very, very good amount of damage, so you're still going to be getting a lot of bang for your buck. And again, when you combine that with level 4 with the speed increase and the range increase, it actually becomes a lot to deal with for the enemy team. Level 10, we already know we're going Purifier Beam. Level 13, we're going to be going for Triple Strike. Again, I mentioned it earlier in the video. By now, a lot of people are using very, very similar builds, but the only differences you're going to see is if people are using Artanis as a tank or as a damage dealer. That's where you start to see a little bit of a difference. But Triple Strike increases Twin Blade strikes to 3 strikes instead of 2 strikes. And when you see my level 16 pick, which is going to be the biggest difference in this entire build, this is going to be the big difference between my build and everybody else's build that you see running a damage dealer Artanis. At level 16, you see a lot of people go for Zealot Charge because the Twin Blades cause you to charge at your target. This addresses the issue that people have where Artanis doesn't have a gap closer. At level 16, all of a sudden he does. I'm not saying that a gap closing ability is not handy. I'm definitely not. But the fact that you have to wait until level 16 to get this, you're playing a certain style of aggression with Artanis from levels 1 to 15. Why would you want to tempt fate at 16? Basically choose an ability that becomes a crutch. It becomes something you lean on where you don't have to work hard anymore for your damage. And the thing is, if Zealot Charge was a pickable talent earlier in the game, that might be different. Like, I feel like if they were ever going to patch Artanis to change up some of his talents to make him feel a little better for the people who are bitching about him, maybe you make Zealot Charge something that's standard on him, not something that you pick, where Twin Blades always dash to your target, or because people might hear that and say that's blasphemy, that's ludicrous, he'll be too strong. Or, if you don't want to do that, you move Zealot Charge up to level 4 in place of Lethal Alacrity, and you make Lethal Alacrity the talent that he's actually got from the jump. Like his blade dash range and speed are higher. You just make the blade dash that much more valuable from the onset. There's no increase to its damage when you do that, so I don't think people would bitch. Just thinking outside the box for people who like Zealot Charge and think they can't live without it. Now, the other mistake, in my opinion, I'm just saying it's a mistake to me, not saying it is a mistake as a fact, but in my opinion, the other mistake I see people making is when they don't go Zealot Charge, they go for Titan Killer. And I'm pretty sure maybe some people were watching this video and they thought that's where I was going to go with this level 16 pick for Titan Killer, where Twin Blades deals more damage versus heroes. Twin Blades attacks against heroes deal an additional 2.5% of the target's maximum health and damage. What does this mean? This means that this is a very, very, very good fucking talent to have if you're trying to deal damage to tanks. If you're going for assassins and specialists and like murky types, Titan Killer does nothing. It does not do anywhere near as much. This is only valuable against tanks, and maybe that's why it's called Titan Killer, you know? Like maybe they were going for the obvious comparison there. So that's why I don't pick it, because it's situational at best. So you see a lot of people, if a team is tank heavy, they'll go Titan Killer maybe. If it's not, they go for Zealot Charge. And I don't do either one. Of course, I don't go for Shield Surge because I'm not going for a tank build. And this is a very good talent, by the way. Like 16 is stacked with talents. So obviously that leaves the last little guy down here, which I knew for a fact I was gonna go for. I mentioned it in the first video, but Psionic Wound, I think, is a heavily effective ability that goes completely unnoticed because of Zealot Charge. Twin Blade's final strike causes enemy heroes to become vulnerable for 2 seconds. So after you land your 3 attacks, the enemy is vulnerable to take extra damage, be it from you or your teammates. If it's from you, guess what that is going to be? That's going to be a combination of an auto attack that's buffed up from your Seasoned Marksman stacks and your Q ability, which is buffed from your talent picks at level 4 and at level 7. And let me tell you, that shit builds. That damage is monstrous. You want to know how I got to 75,000 in that game that I showed last week? It was a combination of Psionic Wound and my Purifier Beam, because at level 20 it's rare for me, but I go for target purified because I know how to use the beam, so I know when to queue it up, how to finish my kills to make sure that the target moves on to the next one, because if the target of the Purifier Beam dies, it automatically recasts on the nearest enemy hero. Again, team wipes for Artanis are extremely common after level 20 if you know what you're doing overall. So, just to give a brief review, at level 1, you want to go Seasoned Marksman for his auto attack buffs. At level 4, you want to go for Lethal Alacrity to increase your range and speed of your blade dash. It just makes it that much more valuable once you hit level 7 and you go for Solar Eye Reaper, where the first dash no longer does minimal damage. It does a good amount of it does a really good amount of damage. At level 10, you want to go for Purifier Beam, which sets up your pick at level 20. At level 13, you want to go for Triple Strike to add another attack to your W ability, which again you should be spamming like there's no tomorrow. You should be spamming this. Artanis is not really mana, like he's not like mana dependent like that. Like you can definitely get away with spamming things, but after a while though he does have to go back in. If he lives a long time, obviously you're gonna have to go back in. At level 16, again, I do not go for Zealot Charge because I do not feel the need to add a gap closer. I play fearlessly. Like his trait is there. It is built for you to last in situations where other heroes don't. Do not play afraid. If you play afraid, you're not going to get anywhere. A scared Artanis is no Artanis. So at level 16, I go for Psionic Wound so that I can add a vulnerable on whatever enemy target I'm engaging, and if my teammates follow up on it, that's extra damage they're dealing. If I have a Q ability on deck, that's extra damage from that. Again, adding the extra damage I get from the first attack at level 7. And then finally at level 20, when you combine all of these things, you add target purified so that you use the beam to finish kills and start up a potential team wipe. This build is damage heavy. It really is. Artanis is definitely the Sonya 2.0 hero that I thought he was going to be. if you know how to use him. He definitely has a place in this game, be it Hero League or Quick Match, which Quick Match will be the way we're going for this video. So hopefully you enjoyed the first half of this video. I rambled on quite a bit, but I guess I had to make up for lost time because this video was long overdue. Hopefully you return for the second half of this video. This is Achilles LBT. As always, it's Achilles with the Z. Remember it.